The day you start loving yourself more than anyone else is the day your life finally begins. Most people give everything to others, time, energy, love, while giving themselves what's left. They wait to be chosen, noticed, or appreciated, and when it doesn't happen, they feel empty. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you chose you every single day, no matter who claps, no matter who stays, no matter who understands? This isn't just another motivational talk. This is a wake-up call, because the truth is, you're not tired from doing too much. You're tired from ignoring yourself. You've been there for everyone else. Now it's time to be there for you. This video will help you rebuild that connection with honesty, with action, with love. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be heard by you. Watch this till the end. If you're ready to feel whole again, this is where it starts. Chapter 1. Stop proving your worth to people who ignore you. You don't need to spend your life trying to convince people who don't see you. That's one of the most draining things a person can do. You wake up, give your best, do what's right, improve your life little by little. And still, there are people who overlook it, who dismiss you, who act like you don't exist. And here's the truth, trying to make them care is never going to give you peace. It's not your job to force anyone to see your worth. It's your job to see it yourself. When someone ignores you, it stings. That feeling in your chest, that ache that says you're not good enough. That's not because you're not valuable. It's because you've tied your value to how someone else responds to you. And that's dangerous, because people are unpredictable. Their moods change, their attention shifts, and if you're chasing their approval just to feel whole, you'll always be broken when they turn away. I've met people who spent years trying to prove they're lovable, important, or smart enough for someone else. And what did it get them? Exhaustion, disappointment, bitterness. That's not love. That's not growth. That's not self-respect. If someone consistently ignores your efforts, your presence, your energy, why are you still offering it? Self-respect starts the moment you stop chasing people who don't care if you're around. That moment when you say, "I've done enough," and you walk away, not out of anger, not to prove a point, but because your peace means more than their attention. That's when you start loving yourself for real. You don't have to be louder for someone to finally hear you. You don't have to be nicer for someone to finally appreciate you. You don't have to shrink your needs just to fit in someone else's comfort zone. If someone doesn't acknowledge your presence, it says more about their blindness than your visibility. You weren't born to spend your time auditioning for people who don't even look up. You weren't made to constantly explain why you matter. If someone overlooks you, stop trying to get in front of their face. Turn your attention inward. Ask yourself, why do I keep returning to someone who keeps walking away? You might be afraid of being alone. You might think your worth depends on how many people accept you. But here's the secret. The most valuable people in the world don't beg for a seat at the table. They build their own table and protect it. Think about how much time you've spent trying to get someone to notice you. All that energy, all those conversations in your head where you replay what you said, what they said, what you could have done differently. That time is gone. It could have been spent building yourself, learning something, creating something, strengthening your mind. But instead, it went into pleasing someone who never saw you to begin with. The truth is, people see what they want to see. And if someone has already decided you don't matter to them, no act of kindness, no gesture of loyalty, no improvement in yourself is going to flip that switch. Their opinion is theirs. You don't need to agree with it, and you sure don't need to live under it. Real love, real respect, doesn't need chasing. It stands still. It sees you. It hears you. You don't have to beg for it. And when you realize that, something powerful happens inside you. You stop running. You stop trying to be perfect. You stop explaining your heart. You just stand in your truth and say, I am enough. And from there, you begin to love yourself in a different way. Not because you're flawless, not because everyone claps for you, but because you've made peace with who you are, and you've stopped making people the judge of your value. You may not be for everyone. That's okay. You're not supposed to be. Some people will overlook you because they're caught up in themselves. Some people will ignore you because they don't understand you. Some people will ignore you because they don't understand you. Some will leave because they can't handle your growth. But that's not rejection. It's redirection. Life is making space. It's saying, they're not your people. Keep moving. You have to get real honest with yourself. Are you living your life trying to be seen, or are you living your life being true to yourself, whether someone sees you or not? Because the people who are meant to be in your life, they see you without you having to raise your voice. They value your time. They respect your presence. They return your energy. They don't leave you guessing where you stand. So don't waste another day trying to get someone to care who simply won't. Don't lose sleep wondering why they don't reply. Don't carry the weight of their silence on your shoulders. That's not your burden. Your only job is to keep becoming someone you can be proud of. There's something freeing about no longer needing to be chosen by someone else. You start choosing yourself. You start spending time with people who actually want you there. You start building habits that make you feel strong. You start focusing on your growth instead of their attention. And you finally learn how to breathe without waiting for their response. The strongest version of you doesn't chase. It attracts. It doesn't prove. It just is. That's the power of self-love. And it starts the day you stop asking others to tell you who you are. If someone truly wanted to be in your life, they would be. If they cared, they would show it. If they valued you, you wouldn't have to keep reminding them. Love doesn't need reminders. Respect doesn't need explanations. Stop exhausting yourself trying to wake people up who are comfortable sleeping on you. Instead, turn all that energy inward. Put it into your health, into your goals, into your peace, into becoming the kind of person you admire. And when you do that long enough, something incredible happens. You attract people who see you without you saying a word. You build relationships based on truth, not performance. And most importantly, you finally build a relationship with yourself that no one else can tear down. When you stop proving your worth to people who ignore you, you stop living for their approval. And that's when you start living for real. Not everyone will see your light. But that's okay. Keep shining anyway, because the people who matter, they'll never ask you to dim it. And the person who matters most, you, will finally start seeing it too. Chapter 2. Accept your flaws without turning them into shame. We all carry something inside that we don't talk about. A regret, a mistake, a part of ourselves we hope no one ever sees. And the truth is, that part, those flaws you try to hide, are not the problem. The real problem is the shame you attach to them. You don't need to be ashamed of being human. You're allowed to have imperfections. You're allowed to have moments where you didn't know better. You're allowed to be a work in progress. Most people go through life thinking they need to erase their flaws to be worthy. They think if they just fix everything that's wrong with them, then they'll finally be good enough. That's a lie. You don't become valuable when you're perfect. You're already valuable as you are. The growth comes when you stop seeing your flaws as something to hide and start accepting them as a real part of your life experience. It's easy to look in the mirror and only see what's missing, what didn't go right, what you wish was different. But growth begins when you look and say, "That's me, and I'm still learning, and that's okay." That's not weakness, that's strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need outside approval to feel good inside. You're not going to be your best every day. You're not going to get everything right. Sometimes you'll fall back into old habits. Sometimes you'll say something you regret. Sometimes you'll let fear control your decisions. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you real. And you can't grow into the person you're meant to be if you're at war with the person you are now. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to learn, to stretch, to evolve. You don't grow by pretending to have it all together. You grow when you're honest about where you're struggling. When you admit, "I've made mistakes, I have insecurities, I've felt lost." But instead of using that truth to beat yourself down, you use it to build yourself up. You look at those areas with compassion, not criticism. A lot of people are not tired because of the work they do. They're tired because of the shame they carry. They're exhausted, trying to hide parts of themselves they think no one will accept. And every time they try to move forward, that shame pulls them back. It tells them, "You're not good enough. You're too messed up. You'll never be like them." But that voice is lying. The truth is, everyone you admire has their own flaws. They've failed. They've doubted themselves. They've had dark moments. What makes them strong is not perfection, it's acceptance. They stopped fighting who they were and started working with it. You don't overcome your flaws by hating them. You overcome them by understanding them. Ask yourself, where did this behavior come from? What pain is this hiding? What fear am I carrying? And once you understand it, you can start to change it. Not from a place of shame, but from a place of growth. There's nothing more freeing than being able to say, "Yes, I've struggled, but I'm still standing." That's how you turn flaws into strength, not by denying them, but by owning them and deciding that they don't control you anymore. You're not meant to be a perfect version of yourself. You're meant to be an honest version, one who shows up, flaws and all, and still chooses to keep going. One who doesn't hide in the shadows when things get tough. One who doesn't break every time things get messy. That kind of person, that's real power. Shame will try to keep you silent. It will try to convince you that if anyone sees the real you, they'll walk away. But the truth is, the more honest you are, the more real connection you create. Because people aren't drawn to perfection, they're drawn to honesty, to truth, to someone who has struggled but still moves forward. The world doesn't need another person pretending to be flawless. It needs people who are brave enough to accept themselves and still move forward. You become that kind of person when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" Your flaws are not signs of failure. They're signs that you're human, that you've lived, that you've felt deeply, that you've taken risks, that you've cared enough to try. So stop punishing yourself for what didn't go right. Start appreciating yourself for how far you've come despite it. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. You hold on to every mistake, every failure, every regret. But if you want to grow, you have to let those things go, not because they didn't matter, but because they don't define you anymore. You are not the worst thing you've done. You are the person who keeps showing up, even with all the scars. And if you want to build a life that's full of peace, of strength, of real love, you have to stop tearing yourself apart every time you fall short. Start treating yourself the way you'd treat someone you care about. Speak to yourself with patience. Give yourself space to grow. Accept that you will always have areas to improve, but that doesn't mean you're not already enough. Every day you have a choice. You can keep dragging your past around like a weight, or you can use it as a foundation. You can keep waiting for the day when everything is perfect to feel good about yourself, or you can decide that today is enough to begin again. When you look at yourself through a lens of love, not shame, you see something different. You don't see a broken person. You see someone who's been through things and survived. You see someone who is trying, someone who is learning, someone who hasn't given up, and that's powerful. Flaws don't make you less, they make you relatable. They make you real. They remind you that you're not above growth, you're in the middle of it, and that's where life actually happens, not in the perfect picture, but in the messy, uncomfortable, honest space where you choose to show up anyway. You won't heal by pretending nothing ever happened. You won't grow by ignoring what hurts. You have to face it, sit with it, understand it, and then decide that your future is not limited by your past. You can change. You can improve. But it starts with acceptance, not shame. So today, stop hiding, stop pretending, stop waiting to feel perfect before you start living. Look at yourself exactly as you are and decide, this is who I am right now, and I'm going to give myself a chance. That's where everything begins. You don't need to become flawless to love yourself. You need to stop using your flaws as a reason not to. You need to see them, understand them, and grow through them. And when you do that, you'll realize that real love, self-love, isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest, being kind, being consistent, being someone who keeps showing up no matter how many times they've fallen. That's what strength looks like. That's what growth looks like. And that's what loving yourself really means.
Chapter 3. Give yourself permission to feel what you feel. Most people are not broken because of what they feel. They're broken because they've been told not to feel it. From an early age, many are taught to hide their emotions, to stay quiet when they're hurt, to smile when they're not okay, to move on quickly when something shakes them to the core, and over time, this turns into emotional suppression. You feel something strong, but instead of letting it move through you, you shut it down. You tell yourself it's weak. You tell yourself you don't have time for it. You tell yourself it's not important, but every time you push it down, it doesn't disappear. It gets stored. It builds up in your chest, in your thoughts, in your decisions, and one day it starts controlling you in ways you don't even notice. Giving yourself permission to feel doesn't mean falling apart. It means acknowledging what's already there. It means saying, yes, this hurts, or yes, I'm angry, or yes, I feel lost right now without guilt. That's not weakness, that's strength. Real strength, because it takes strength to face what's uncomfortable instead of avoiding it. It takes courage to sit with sadness instead of distracting yourself from it. It takes honesty to admit that you're not okay and still give yourself the space to be that way without judgment. Most people try to outrun their emotions. They keep themselves busy. They overwork. They scroll for hours. They talk to everyone except themselves. They pretend everything is fine until they can't hold it in anymore. And then it explodes. Maybe in a conversation, maybe in silence, maybe in the way they shut down and disconnect from life. But that's not healing. That's bottling. That's hiding. That's teaching yourself that what you feel doesn't deserve to be seen. But it does. What you feel is valid, even when it doesn't make sense. even when it's not convenient, even when someone else tells you to just get over it. You're not made to ignore your inner world. You're made to understand it. Emotions are not enemies. They are signals. They tell you something needs your attention. Something needs to be understood. Something needs to be understood. The pain you're carrying isn't a problem. The problem is thinking you don't have the right to feel it. That you should be stronger, that you should bounce back faster, that you should just move on. But rushing your emotions doesn't make you grow. It disconnects you from who you really are. Growth happens when you face the emotion and listen to what it's trying to say. If you're grieving, that means something mattered to you. If you're angry, that means something crossed a boundary. If you're scared, that means something feels uncertain or unsafe. These feelings are not here to punish you. They're here to guide you. But you have to stop fighting them. You have to stop telling yourself that you're wrong for feeling deeply. You might think that being strong means staying calm all the time. That's not true. Being strong means letting yourself experience what you feel without letting it destroy your sense of worth. It means holding your sadness with care, not shame. It means allowing yourself to cry when something touches a deep part of you. It means letting your feelings breathe instead of locking them away like they don't matter. You've probably had moments where you told yourself, I shouldn't feel this way. But that's not how it works. You don't choose emotions like you choose what to wear. You don't control when they come. What you do control is how you respond to them. You can either pretend they don't exist and let them grow in the dark, or you can face them and start healing. When you're going through something, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to say, I need time to process this. It's okay to say, I don't know how I feel yet, but I'm trying to understand. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Not having all the answers. Not suppressing the discomfort. But being honest enough to say, this is where I am today. There's no timeline for healing. No deadline for figuring it all out. You don't owe anyone quick answers. You don't need to prove how strong you are by acting like nothing affects you. That's not real strength. Real strength is quiet. It's personal. It's found in the small decision to show up for yourself when no one else can see your struggle. Sometimes you'll feel heavy. Not because you're weak, but because you've been carrying so much inside for too long. And the only way to feel lighter is to stop stuffing it down and start letting it out. Not in chaos, not in rage, but in truth, in awareness, in giving yourself space to simply be human. Some people may not understand what you're going through. That's okay. Your emotions don't need their validation. What you feel is yours. It's real. And you don't need to explain it to people who only listen to reply, not to understand. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself. You don't need to label every emotion as good or bad. Just let them be what they are. Temporary states, not permanent truths. Just because you feel unworthy doesn't mean you are. Just because you feel stuck doesn't mean you failed. Emotions are not facts, they're experience, and all experiences are meant to pass. But they can only pass when you let yourself feel them fully. Most people are disconnected from themselves because they've learned to fear their feelings. But fear fades when you face it. When you sit with sadness, it turns into understanding. When you sit with anger, it shows you where you need change. When you sit with fear, it points to the part of you that wants to feel safe. Your emotions are not the problem. Your avoidance is. Every emotion you feel is a chance to learn something about yourself, and the more you listen, the better you get at handling what life brings. You don't explode. You don't shut down. You don't run. You respond. You breathe through it. You ask yourself, what's really going on? And in doing that, you grow stronger, not because you forced yourself to hide the pain, but because you had the courage to sit with it and grow through it. So from this day on, stop apologizing for feeling deeply. Stop calling yourself weak for being human. Start honoring your inner world. Start giving yourself the space to process what's real. Don't wait for permission from anyone else. Give it to yourself. Because healing doesn't begin when others understand you. Healing begins when you decide to listen to yourself. You're allowed to be a full human being, not just the calm version, not just the smiling version. All of you. The joyful you, the grieving you, the confused you, the excited you, the hurting you. Every part matters. Every part belongs. There's a quiet kind of peace that comes when you finally stop running from what you feel. When you wake up one day and say, whatever is here today, I'm going to feel it. I'm going to give it space. I'm going to let it move through me instead of trying to fight it. That's when everything begins to shift. That's when your mind clears. That's when your heart opens. That's when you stop fearing what's inside you and start trusting that it's trying to help you heal. So let yourself feel fully, without shame, without guilt, without needing to justify it. Just be honest. That honesty will bring you closer to yourself than anything else ever will. Because once you start allowing your real feelings, you start living a real life, and nothing is more powerful than that.
Chapter 4. Break the habit of needing constant outside approval. One of the most common traps people fall into is needing someone else to tell them they're doing okay. They keep checking for validation. They keep asking for approval. They keep changing who they are just to get a reaction. And over time it becomes a habit, a deep, quiet habit that controls every choice they make. You start measuring your worth by how many people like you, how quickly someone responds, how much praise you receive. But that's not a way to live. That's a way to stay stuck. When you need constant outside approval, you stop listening to yourself. You begin molding your decisions to fit what other people expect. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay quiet when you have something to say. You keep yourself small because you're afraid of being judged. And every time you silence your truth to get approval, you chip away at your self-respect. You might not even notice how much you rely on it until you feel the emptiness when it's not there. Someone doesn't respond the way you hoped. They don't say good job. They don't acknowledge your effort, and suddenly your confidence drops. That's the problem. When your belief in yourself depends on someone else's reaction, you lose power the moment they withhold it. You weren't meant to live your life like a popularity contest. You weren't built to chase applause just to feel okay. That's not strength. That's survival. And real strength comes from learning how to stand without needing someone to hold you up. Think about how often you've paused your own progress just to wait for someone else's approval. How many times have you doubted yourself just because someone didn't cheer you on? That hesitation, that fear, that second guessing, it's not coming from you, it's coming from the habit of always needing someone else to say, yes, you're doing fine. But here's the truth. Approval isn't always coming. People are busy. People are distracted. People are caught up in their own stories. And if you live your life waiting for a thumbs up, you'll be standing still for years. You don't need to be seen to be valuable. You don't need to be praised to make progress. You just need to keep showing up and doing the work. When you stop chasing approval, you start living in alignment with your real values. You start doing things because they matter to you, not because they impress someone else. You begin building a life that reflects your own vision, not someone else's expectations. That's where confidence grows, not in the echo of compliments, but in the quiet certainty that you're being true to yourself. Some people are not going to like you no matter what you do. That's not a failure. That's reality. And the sooner you make peace with that, the freer you become. You stop explaining yourself. You stop performing.
You stop overthinking every little move, and you finally start breathing in your own space. There's a kind of peace that comes when you let go of the need to be liked. Not because you don't care about people, but because you've realized that your value isn't tied to their opinion. You can still respect others, still be kind, still be humble, but you don't bend yourself in half just to be accepted. You're not here to impress people. You're here to become someone you're proud of. And that requires honesty. Honesty about who you are. Honesty about what you want. Honesty about what you're no longer willing to chase. Approval might feel good in the moment, but self-respect feels better in the long run. One fades quickly. The other stays with you. When you build your confidence around external praise, it's fragile. The moment it's not there, you collapse. But when you build it around your actions, your values, your discipline, that's when it becomes unshakable. That's when no one's silence can break you. No rejection can define you. No opinion can hold you back. Ask yourself who you'd be if you didn't care about what anyone thought. What choices would you make? What would you stop apologizing for? What would you start saying out loud? That's the version of you that's waiting behind the fear. The one who doesn't ask, do they like me? But asks, do I like who I'm becoming? Breaking the habit of needing approval isn't about becoming careless. It's about becoming clear. Clear about your worth. Clear about your path. Clear about who you're no longer willing to shrink for. You still listen. You still learn. You still grow, but you stop needing everyone to clap for you just to move forward. You've already spent enough time shaping yourself around what others want. It's time to start building yourself around what you believe. That's when you stop living small. That's when you stop editing yourself just to fit in. That's when your confidence starts growing from a real place. And when you no longer depend on outside validation, something powerful happens. You become grounded. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You start walking into rooms without wondering who likes you. You start speaking without overthinking every word. You stop waiting for permission to be yourself. If you've ever felt anxious after posting something or sharing your thoughts, ask yourself why. Is it because you believe in what you said, or because you're worried about how it will be received? That moment right there is where freedom is built. You either stay stuck in the cycle of needing approval, or you choose to trust your voice regardless of the reaction. You're not going to be everyone's favorite. You're not going to win every heart. But that's not the goal. The goal is to become someone who doesn't need constant reassurance, just to feel secure. That's what gives you the freedom to take risks, to speak honestly, to move without hesitation. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. That silence after you make a bold decision, that moment when no one says good job, but you sit with it. You stay steady. You remind yourself, I'm not doing this for praise. I'm doing this because it's right for me. And the more you do that, the stronger you become. Eventually you stop checking how your life looks from the outside and start asking how it feels on the inside. You start choosing things that bring peace, not applause. You start building routines that keep you strong, not visible. You start saying no to things that drain you, even if they please others. And you realize this is what real confidence is. Not loud, not flashy, not built on likes or comments, but quiet, rooted, real. The kind that doesn't ask, will they approve, but says, I approve of me. That's how you grow. That's how you win. That's how you stop living for everyone else and finally start living for yourself. Approval fades. Trends change. Opinions shift. But the relationship you have with yourself, that's what lasts. That's what gives you power. That's what frees you. So if you've been chasing approval, pause. Ask yourself what it's costing you. Your energy, your time, your truth. Then decide. Right here, right now. You're done proving yourself. You're done waiting for applause. You're done seeking permission. You're ready to build a life that doesn't need a crowd to be meaningful. And that shift, that quiet decision to trust yourself, that's where your real strength begins.
Chapter 5. Trust how you feel more than what they say. There will always be people who think they know what's best for you. People who speak with confidence about what you should do, how you should live, where you should go, and who you should be. They'll offer advice like it's truth. They'll speak louder than your own thoughts. And if you're not careful, you'll start listening to their voices more than your own. You'll start questioning your instincts. You'll doubt what your heart already knows, and before you realize it, you're no longer living your life. You're following someone else's idea of it. It's important to understand something that most people overlook. Just because someone sounds sure doesn't mean they're right. Just because they speak from experience doesn't mean that experience matches yours. And just because they care about you doesn't mean they always understand you. You have a mind, you have intuition, you have emotions, and you have the right to trust those things even if nobody else agrees with you. You've probably had moments where you felt something strongly but still ignored it because someone else told you otherwise. You felt something was off, but they told you not to worry. You felt something was right, but they told you it wasn't practical. You felt unsure, but they told you to keep going. And after enough of those moments, you start to wonder if you can trust your feelings at all. But the truth is, your feelings weren't the problem. Your mistake was letting someone else overrule them. You don't need to justify your feelings to people who haven't lived your experience. They haven't seen what you've seen. They haven't been where you've been. They don't carry your memories. They don't feel what you feel. That doesn't make them bad. It just makes them different. And when you let different become louder than authentic, you start to lose connection with yourself. Nobody can feel what's going on in your body the way you do. Nobody can sense what drains you or lifts you like you can. Nobody knows what triggers your anxiety, what makes you calm, what brings you joy, or what makes you uncomfortable better than you. That's your internal compass. And ignoring it just to make others comfortable will always come at a cost. Many people seek external advice because they want clarity, but clarity doesn't always come from someone else's mouth. It often comes from silence, from stillness, from listening to yourself without interruption. But most people don't give themselves that chance. They fill their minds with input. What their friends think, what social media says, what their family expects, and in that noise, their own voice disappears. The first step toward building a strong sense of self is learning to trust the way you feel before you ask for input. When something doesn't sit right with you, that's information. When something lights you up inside, that's guidance. You don't need to always explain it. Sometimes it just is. That's your signal. That's your truth, and you don't need someone to confirm it for it to matter. There's a lot of pressure in this world to be logical all the time, to make decisions that look good on paper, to choose what's safe, what's accepted, what makes sense to others. But some of the best decisions you'll ever make won't make sense to anyone but you. You'll feel them in your chest, in your gut. You'll just know. And even if others disagree, you'll find peace because you followed something real. Think about how many people have regrets because they ignored how they felt. They stayed in jobs that drained them because someone told them it was secure. They stayed in relationships that hurt them because someone told them to keep trying. They gave up on dreams because someone told them they were being unrealistic. And years later, they still feel the weight of what they didn't do. You don't want to live with that weight. You don't want to look back and realize that you abandoned your own path just to stay on someone else's. You want to look back and say, I honored what I felt. I may have made mistakes, but I made them honestly. I may have taken risks, but they were mine to take. That's where fulfillment comes from. Not from getting it perfect, but from staying connected to yourself, no matter what.
Learning to trust your feelings doesn't mean you never listen to advice. It means you filter it. You take in what supports your truth and leave behind what doesn't fit. You listen to understand, not to obey. You give others the space to share their views, but you don't hand over the power to shape your direction. That's yours, always has been. There will be times when people mean well but still lead you the wrong way. Their voice might be louder, but that doesn't make it more accurate. You don't need to argue, you don't need to defend yourself. You just need to stay anchored in what you know deep down. Your feelings are valid, even if they're not popular. Sometimes your body knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. That tension you feel around someone isn't just stress, it's your boundary being pushed. That energy drop after a certain decision isn't just exhaustion, it's misalignment. That sense of calm when you consider a new direction isn't just relief, it's resonance. When you start to notice these things, you stop ignoring yourself. You begin to treat your emotions like the valuable information they are. And when you do that consistently, something shifts. You stop needing constant validation. You stop asking everyone else for answers. You start developing your own. You begin moving through life with more clarity, not because everything is easy, but because you're finally living in alignment with your own truth. You might lose some people in the process. Some won't understand your choices. Some will question your direction. But that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself. The people who truly care about you will respect your ability to trust yourself. The ones who don't, you were never meant to follow their path anyway. You're allowed to make decisions that others don't understand. You're allowed to say, this just doesn't feel right, and act on it. You're allowed to choose peace over perfection. You're allowed to change your mind when your emotions shift. That's growth. That's maturity. That's living. Start giving more weight to how things make you feel and less to how they look from the outside. Life is not a performance. It's a personal journey. And the most important part of that journey is staying honest with yourself. Every time you trust your feelings, you build more confidence. You begin to trust your judgment. You start realizing that you don't need to always explain your choices. You feel empowered. You feel grounded. You feel free. And freedom is never found in trying to live by someone else's rules. It's found in listening to your own voice and honoring it. Even when it's scary, even when it goes against the crowd, even when you can't predict the outcome, because your feelings won't always give you comfort, but they'll always give you truth. Truth doesn't always sound logical. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it pulls, sometimes it stirs up discomfort, but it always leads you to where you belong, if you're willing to follow it. So pay attention when something feels off. Listen when something feels right. Trust it when your heart speaks. Don't silence it just because others don't understand. You are the one living your life. You are the one who has to wake up with your decision. You are the one who knows what peace feels like in your chest. Trust that quiet inner signal, that pull, that pause, that urge. It's not noise. It's not confusion. It's you. It's the part of you that's been waiting for you to listen. And once you do, you'll realize you always knew the way. You were just waiting for permission to believe it. Give yourself that permission now, because nobody else can do it for you. Chapter 6. Let your actions reflect how much you matter. It's easy to say you matter. It's easy to post it, repeat it, or even tell others to believe it. But until your actions show it, nothing changes. Your habits reveal how you feel about yourself. The way you treat your time, your body, your priorities, and your space, it all reflects your sense of self-worth. If you say you value yourself, but constantly put your needs last. If you say you matter, but ignore your goals. If you say you love yourself, but allow situations that break your peace, then your actions and your words are out of sync. And that gap, that's where self-doubt grows. Many people wait to feel valuable before they act like they are. They wait to be confident before they move forward. They wait for motivation before they show up for themselves. But that's backward. The way you build belief in yourself is by acting like you already matter, even when you don't feel like it yet. That means doing what supports you. That means choosing behaviors that align with someone who respects their life. You don't wait for the perfect feeling to take care of yourself. You show up now. You take action now, and those actions start changing how you see yourself. When you wake up and make your bed, that's not just a task, it's a signal. It tells your mind that your space deserves order. When you turn off distractions to focus on your goal, that's not just discipline, it's proof that your future matters. When you walk away from people who disrespect your time, that's not just a boundary, it's self-respect in motion. And when you say no to things that drain you, when you rest without guilt, when you show up for your goals even when no one is watching, those are the choices that say, I matter. No one will value your time more than you do. No one will respect your body more than you do. No one will believe in your path more than you do. If your actions say, I'm not worth much, the world will echo that. But if your actions say, I take care of me, the world starts responding differently. You get what you tolerate. You attract what you allow. You live out what you reinforce every single day. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you send a message that your goals are optional. Every time you delay your growth for someone else's comfort, you tell yourself that your dreams can wait. And every time you silence your needs just to avoid discomfort, you train your mind to accept less than what you deserve. That's not a lack of discipline, it's a lack of clarity on your worth. People don't fail because they don't know what to do. Most of the time, they fail because they haven't made a firm decision to treat themselves like they matter. They'll show up for everyone else. They'll sacrifice their sleep, their time, their focus just to not disappoint others. But when it comes to showing up for themselves, they hesitate, they make excuses. They push it back, and the more they do that, the weaker their self-image becomes. You can't build a strong life on weak habits. You can't become someone you're proud of if your choices tell you the opposite. You don't need to fix everything overnight, but you do need to start behaving like your time is important. Like your health matters. Like your voice deserves to be heard. Like your dreams are worth building. You have to act like you're valuable. Not someday. Not when things are easier. Right now. If you're tired, if you're overwhelmed, slow down. But don't abandon yourself. Don't keep saying yes to people who only take from you. Don't keep running from goals that make you uncomfortable. And don't stay silent when something isn't right. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you ignore your needs, they will too. If you don't protect your energy, they won't respect your space. If you let your time be wasted, it will be. Start showing up with more honesty, more consistency, more alignment. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop waiting for someone else to show you how to live. That's your job. And every single day, your actions are shaping the kind of person you are becoming. Whether you realize it or not. Small choices add up. Drinking water instead of skipping meal, going to sleep on time instead of scrolling for hours, saying no to something that feels off, planning your day before it disappears, speaking kindly to yourself when things go wrong. These actions don't just change your results, they change your relationship with yourself. You start to see yourself as someone who can be trusted, someone who follows through, someone who takes responsibility, someone who chooses wisely. And with every action, you reinforce the message, I matter, my life matters. What I do with my time matters. Some people will not understand your boundaries. Some people will take your distance personally. Some will question why you're not as available as you used to be. That's okay. Growth is not for their comfort, it's for your peace. And peace doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from knowing that your life is being lived on your terms, that you're not breaking yourself to be liked, that you're not sacrificing your values just to avoid judgment. You'll feel resistance at first. Guilt might show up when you say no. Fear might rise when you set limits, but those feelings are part of the shift. They're not signs to stop. They're signs that you're breaking old habits and creating new ones. You're no longer seeking validation through self-sacrifice. You're seeking self-respect through consistency. If you've been letting yourself down, you can change that. Right now, you don't need to wait for motivation. You just need to take one small action that supports your growth, then another, and every one of those moments becomes a vote for the kind of life you want to live. Nobody becomes confident by accident. Confidence comes from action. It comes from doing what you said you would do, from showing up even when it's hard, from taking yourself seriously, from realizing that your time, your mind, and your body are worth protecting. So think about what you do every day. What are you telling yourself with your habits? What are you reinforcing with your choices? What are you saying to your future with how you treat your present? If the answer doesn't reflect that you matter, it's time to shift. Wake up and start making choices that reflect your worth. Not because anyone's watching, not because you want praise, but because your life deserves it. Because you deserve it. Because there's power in living like you mean something to yourself. It's not just about productivity, it's about integrity. When your actions match your values, you become unstoppable. You stop second-guessing. You stop hesitating. You start moving with purpose. You stop waiting to be chosen, and realize you can choose yourself. Again and again. Every single day. The world won't give you more until you start treating what you have like it matters. That means showing up fully, taking care of your health, using your time wisely, feeding your mind the right things, saying yes to what builds you, saying no to what breaks you, and carrying yourself like someone who knows their worth is not up for debate. You want to be respected? Start by respecting yourself. You want to be loved deeply? Start by loving yourself enough to walk away from what hurts. You want to win in life? Start making decisions that reflect a winner's mindset. The truth is, your life is shaped not by what you say, but by what you do when no one's watching. The effort you give when there's no applause, the way you show up for yourself when no one is asking you to. That's what builds real power. That's what creates real change. That's what transforms how you feel about who you are. So from this day forward, start moving like you matter. Start eating like your health is worth protecting. Start working like your future is worth building. Start thinking like your mind is worth protecting. Start living like your life actually belongs to you. Because it does. And when your actions begin to reflect that truth, everything begins to change. Not just on the outside, but deep inside, where it truly counts.
Chapter 7. Spend time alone until it no longer feels lonely. Most people are afraid to be alone, not because solitude is painful, but because they've never learned how to feel comfortable in their own presence. When you've spent your life surrounded by noise, expectations, and constant interaction, the quiet can feel threatening. But that silence, if you let it, will teach you everything you need to know about who you are. You don't grow when you run from being alone. You grow when you sit with it long enough for it to stop feeling like punishment and start feeling like peace. It's in those quiet moments, when the world stops demanding something from you, that you hear your own thoughts clearly.
That's when you begin to separate what you truly want from what you've been taught to want. You start to understand what drains you, what lifts you, what makes you anxious, and what brings you peace. But most people never reach that point because they distract themselves at the first sign of discomfort. They fill the space with calls, scrolling, TV, conversations, anything but themselves. And in doing that, they miss the most important connection they'll ever have. You can't build self-respect if you're constantly avoiding yourself. You can't develop real confidence if you only feel good when others are around. And you can't learn how to love yourself if you've never spent time alone long enough to feel safe in your own presence. That's where loneliness turns into strength, not by running from the quiet, but by making peace with it. When you first choose to be alone, it might feel empty. Your mind might start racing. Old memories might surface. Insecurities will rise. That's part of the process. It's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you're finally paying attention. All the noise you pushed down begins to come up, not to hurt you, but to be acknowledged and released. And the longer you stay, the more you begin to hear something different. You begin to hear clarity. You start to notice what you actually enjoy, not just what you're used to doing with others. You begin to see patterns in your thoughts. You begin to recognize the places where you've been performing instead of living. The longer you sit with yourself, the more real you become. And the more real you become, the less approval you need from others. Because you're no longer trying to be liked. You're trying to be honest. You're trying to feel at home in your own life. Most people are afraid that being alone means something's wrong with them. They think if they're not constantly surrounded by others, they're failing socially or emotionally. But solitude is not isolation. It's not rejection. It's not a punishment. It's an opportunity to rebuild your center, to listen without interruption, to reset your nervous system, to slow down long enough to see what your life actually looks like, and whether or not it matches who you really are. If you've never spent time alone intentionally, it will feel strange. You'll reach for your phone. You'll crave validation. You'll want to escape. But if you stay with yourself, if you keep showing up even when it's uncomfortable, you'll learn how to feel strong in that space. You'll stop associating being alone with being unwanted. You'll start associating it with being grounded. It's in solitude that your standards rise. You stop tolerating chaos because you've felt what peace actually feels like. You stop rushing into the wrong relationships because you've learned how to feel whole without one. You stop chasing friendships that only distract you because you've experienced the power of quiet clarity. Time alone is not a void. It's a mirror. It shows you your real needs, your unfiltered thoughts, your hidden strength. But that mirror only works if you're brave enough to look at it. Most people never do. They keep jumping from one interaction to the next, hoping that someone else will make them feel complete. But no one can do that. No matter how close, no matter how kind, no matter how available, if you don't feel at peace with yourself, every relationship will eventually feel like pressure, because you'll expect them to fix what you've never tried to fix within. The most peaceful people are not the ones with the busiest lives. They're the ones who've learned to be still, to sit with their thoughts, to breathe without needing noise, to feel their emotions without rushing to numb them. They've built a strong inner home, and that home doesn't collapse when others leave. That home doesn't shatter when plans change. That home stands because it was built from within. Spending time alone also sharpens your focus. You begin to see what you've been avoiding, the goals you've delayed, the boundaries you've been too afraid to set, the habits that drain your energy, the decisions you keep postponing. Solitude strips away distraction and brings you face to face with truth. And truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is the beginning of real growth. The longer you practice being with yourself, the more natural it becomes. What once felt lonely begins to feel like freedom. What once felt silent begins to feel peaceful. You begin to crave that stillness, not because you're running from people, but because you've learned the value of your own presence. You no longer fear being alone. You welcome it. And here's what happens when you truly become comfortable with yourself. You stop settling. You stop trying to fit in with people who drain your spirit. You stop needing to explain your decisions just to be accepted. You stop attaching your self-worth to someone else's ability to love you, because you've already built a connection with yourself that can't be shaken. You also become a better friend, a better partner, a better leader, because you're no longer operating from a place of neediness. You're giving from fullness, not from lack. You're present in conversations because you're not distracted by your own insecurity. You're able to listen better because your mind isn't racing with unspoken doubts. You've faced yourself, and because of that you can show up for others more fully. Some people will question your decision to spend time alone. They'll assume you're hiding, that you're avoiding life, that something must be wrong. Don't let those assumptions stop you. People often judge what they don't understand, and if they've never felt safe in their own solitude, they won't understand why you would choose it. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to grow, to heal, to learn who you are when no one else is around, to become whole without noise. And when you do that, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because people can sense the calm in you, the clarity, the quiet strength that only comes from someone who's met themselves fully. You don't need to perform. You don't need to prove. You just exist, deeply and honestly. Start small. Take 15 minutes without distraction. Sit with your thoughts. Write them down. Go for a walk without your phone. Listen to what your mind is saying. You might be surprised by what you find. Then increase it. Not because you're trying to escape the world, but because you're trying to reconnect with yourself. You're learning that your own company isn't something to survive. It's something to value. You were never meant to depend on constant interaction just to feel alive. You were never meant to be afraid of your own thoughts. You were never meant to base your identity on who surrounds you. You were meant to know yourself deeply, truly, without distraction. And when you spend enough time alone to find that center, everything changes. You become more focused, more intentional, more calm, more secure, and most of all, more connected to who you really are. That's what turns time alone into power, not the silence, but the transformation that happens inside it. And once you've felt that, loneliness doesn't scare you anymore, because you've built something stronger than comfort. You've built inner peace.
Chapter 8. Take care of yourself before anyone even asks. Most people wait until they're exhausted before they slow down. They wait until they're sick before they rest. They wait until someone notices their struggle before they finally admit they need a break. But life doesn't reward you for pushing yourself to the edge. It doesn't give you extra points for ignoring your own needs. It gives you consequences. It gives you stress, burnout, emotional fatigue, and eventually it gives you the reality check that you've been treating everyone better than you treat yourself. That's not noble. That's self-neglect, dressed up as responsibility. You don't need to wait for anyone to remind you to care for yourself. You have to do it first. Not after the damage shows up. Not when you're already overwhelmed. You take care of yourself before anyone even thinks to ask. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When you consistently prioritize your health, your peace, your time, your energy, you send a clear message: I matter. When you keep skipping meals, overworking, overcommitting, saying yes out of guilt, you send another message: I come second. And you live according to the message you reinforce daily. If you constantly show up for others but abandon yourself in the process, you can't blame the world for not showing up for you. It's not about blaming others. It's about realizing you are the first person responsible for you. Most of the emotional exhaustion people feel isn't just about how much they're doing. It's about how little they're receiving from themselves. You can be productive all day and still feel empty. Not because you didn't do enough, but because you didn't do anything that helped you feel grounded. Caring for yourself isn't selfish. It's smart. It's necessary. It's what allows you to keep going without losing yourself in the process. People often talk about self-care like it's a luxury, like it's something you fit in if you have extra time. But it's not optional. It's not a treat. It's your foundation.
You don't build a strong life by ignoring what keeps you stable. You build it by protecting your sleep, by eating well, by checking in with your mind, by moving your body, by saying no to what drains you. These are not extra steps. These are essential, and you don't wait until someone checks on you to start doing them, because most of the time, no one's going to ask. Not because they don't care, but because they assume you're handling it. You smile. You keep working. You say you're fine, and the world moves on. You can't wait for a breakdown to give yourself attention. You give it to yourself every day, so the breakdown doesn't happen. This is not about becoming hyper-focused on routines or trying to be perfect in your habits. It's about awareness, about knowing when you're slipping, when your thoughts are getting heavier, when your sleep is getting shorter, when your patience is running out, when your chest feels tight, but you tell yourself to keep going. That's when you pause. That's when you step back and say, I need a moment for me. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. You just need honesty with yourself. Taking care of yourself before anyone asks means you stop waiting for pain to make a move. You become proactive instead of reactive. You wake up and check in with your body, not your notification. You listen to how your thoughts are speaking to you that day. You notice your own breathing. You protect your calendar. You recognize that if you keep giving without receiving from within, you eventually burn out and start resenting the very people you wanted to help. And here's the hard part. When you start prioritizing yourself, some people won't understand. They've gotten used to you always saying yes, always being available, always putting their needs first. And the moment you change, they'll push back. They'll say you're being distant. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. You have. You've decided to stop breaking your own boundaries for people who didn't even notice they were crossing them. That's not rude. That's called growth. You have to decide what kind of life you want to live. One where you constantly rescue everyone around you but feel like you're drowning inside. Or one where you're steady, grounded, intentional, and strong enough to support others without losing yourself in the process. That strength doesn't come from doing more. It comes from resting when you need to, from speaking up when something isn't working, from recognizing when your body and mind are asking for attention. There's no reward for suffering in silence, no gold star for pretending you're okay when you're not. If you want to live well, you have to lead yourself well. That means checking in daily. That means creating small systems that support you, drinking enough water, unplugging from screens, moving your body, even if just for a few minutes, being mindful of what you consume, not just food, but media, conversations, environments. These things matter more than most people realize. It also means you become your own source of encouragement. You don't wait for someone to compliment you to feel proud. You look at your own progress and say, I did that. You don't wait for someone to notice your effort. You acknowledge it yourself, because when you start showing up for yourself like that, you stop craving it from others. You stop performing. You stop seeking validation, and you start building a life that feels whole, even when no one else is watching. Taking care of yourself doesn't mean you isolate. It doesn't mean you never help others. It means you help from overflow, not depletion. You support others because you're steady, not because you're running on adrenaline. You say yes to people because you want to, not because you're afraid of guilt. You rest because you respect yourself, not because you've hit your breaking point. This shift doesn't happen overnight. You'll catch yourself slipping. You'll say yes when you should have said no. You'll ignore your own needs for the sake of convenience. But with awareness, you start catching those moments faster. You start correcting them without judgment. You start making new choices. Not perfect ones, but better ones. And those better choices build a better version of you. You don't owe anyone burnout. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone access to every moment of your day. What you owe is to yourself, to stay in tune with your own needs, to check in before you crash, to build habits that protect you, to stand by yourself even when it feels unfamiliar. Because once you master that, once you take care of yourself before anyone even thinks to ask, your life transforms. You feel more grounded, you make better decisions, you set clearer boundaries, you create space for creativity, for calm, for connection. You stop feeling like life is just something you survive and start feeling like it's something you're building on purpose. That's not just self-care, that's self-leadership, that's maturity. That's what it looks like to truly value yourself, not with words, not with inspiration, but with consistent action, every day, quietly, deliberately, respectfully, because you deserve that, and you don't need a reason or permission to give it to yourself. You just need to start right now, today, before anyone asks, because that's when it counts the most.
Chapter 9. Stand up for yourself even when your voice shakes. There will come a time when you know something isn't right. Maybe someone crosses a line. Maybe you're being mistreated. Maybe your values are being ignored. And in that moment, you'll feel it. The pressure in your chest, the tightness in your throat, the sudden heat in your body. You'll want to say something. You'll want to push back. But fear will creep in. Fear of judgment. Fear of conflict. Fear of not being taken seriously. And even though your voice may shake, even though your hands might tremble, that's the exact moment you need to speak. That's the moment you need to stand up for yourself. Not because you feel ready, but because your silence will cost you more than your discomfort ever will. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean yelling or forcing others to agree with you. It means being honest about what you believe, what you need, and what you will not accept. It means refusing to betray yourself for the sake of keeping the peace. It means choosing self-respect over comfort. It means acknowledging that your needs are valid, even if others don't agree. You don't have to be loud to be firm. You don't have to be fearless to be strong. Courage doesn't mean you don't feel nervous. It means you act anyway, even with the nerves, even when your heart is racing, even when your voice isn't steady. What matters is that you show up for yourself, because every time you stay silent to avoid conflict, you reinforce the idea that your needs don't matter, and the more you do that, the easier it becomes to disappear inside your own life. Many people were taught that being polite is more important than being honest. That speaking up is rude. That standing your ground makes you difficult. But those lessons are wrong. You can be kind and still hold your boundaries. You can be respectful and still refuse to be disrespected. You don't have to choose between being good and being strong. You can be both. Sometimes you'll speak up and people won't listen. Sometimes you'll tell the truth and others will deny it. Sometimes you'll defend yourself and they'll call it overreacting. That's not your fault. Your responsibility is not to control how others respond. Your responsibility is to be clear, to be honest, and to honor your own voice. Because when you speak, you're not just protecting your rights. You're reminding yourself that you're worthy of being heard. The moment you allow others to walk over your boundaries without speaking, you begin to teach yourself that peace can only exist when you stay small. But real peace isn't found in silence. It's found in clarity, in saying what needs to be said, in drawing lines where lines are needed, in being real even when it's uncomfortable. Standing up for yourself may create tension, but it also creates truth, and truth builds strong foundations. Relationships where you don't have to pretend. Workplaces where your contributions are respected. Friendships where you don't have to shrink to be accepted. But none of that happens if you stay silent when your heart is asking you to speak. The discomfort you feel when you speak up is temporary. The discomfort you feel when you don't is long-lasting.
One lasts a moment. The other stays with you. The resentment builds. The self-trust weakens. The identity fades, and soon you become someone you barely recognize, someone who goes along with anything just to avoid the discomfort of being real. But the real version of you is still there. It's in the moments you walk away from what feels wrong. It's in the moments you say no, even if it disappoints someone. It's in the moments you say, I don't agree, even if your voice breaks. It's in the quiet decisions where you put yourself first, not out of selfishness, but out of survival. People may not understand your growth. They may challenge your voice. When you start using it, that's okay. Growth doesn't require permission. Strength doesn't ask for approval. You're not here to be agreeable at the cost of your integrity. You're not here to earn your place by tolerating disrespect. You're here to live truthfully. And truth often starts with a difficult sentence. You'll never regret speaking up for yourself when you do it from a place of truth. You may feel nervous. You may feel emotional. But you'll walk away knowing that you honored yourself. That you didn't betray your own values to avoid tension. That you stood your ground, even when it shook beneath your feet. And the more you do it, the stronger you get. The first time is the hardest. But with each moment, your voice gets steadier. Your presence gets stronger. Your belief in yourself deepens. And soon what once terrified you becomes second nature. You don't hesitate to ask for what you need. You don't flinch when someone crosses a line. You don't shrink when your truth is different from the crowd. You stand firm. Not because you're trying to win, but because you're no longer willing to lose yourself. If you've spent your life keeping quiet, it's going to take practice. That's okay. You don't have to start with the biggest battles. Start with the small ones. Say no when you're tired. Speak up when you feel overlooked. Correct someone when they misrepresent you. These moments build muscle. They build belief. They tell your nervous system, I can do this. I won't fall apart for being real. You're not doing this to impress anyone. You're doing it to build trust with yourself. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything else. When you trust yourself, you don't second-guess your choices. You don't rely on others to protect you. You become your own advocate. You know when something doesn't sit right. You know when it's time to walk away. You know when it's time to speak, even if your voice shakes. And when you show up for yourself like that, people notice. Not everyone will like it, but the right people will respect it. They'll hear the difference in your tone. They'll feel the strength in your words. They'll understand that you are someone who knows their worth. Not because you say it, but because you live it. So if you're standing in a moment where your heart is racing and your throat feels tight, remember this. Your voice matters, even when it trembles, even when it's soft, even when it's uncertain. Use it. Speak up. Not for attention, not for drama, but for dignity, for truth, for freedom. Because every time you speak, you reclaim a part of yourself that silence tried to steal. Your boundaries are not negotiable. Your worth is not up for debate. And your truth does not need to be loud to be valid. It just needs to be spoken. Even if your voice shakes, even if it scares you, even if it's only heard by one person, that's how you begin to change your life. Not by waiting for others to save you, but by becoming the person who refuses to abandon themselves, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. That's real strength. That's real courage. That's what standing up for yourself truly means. And once you've done it, you'll never want to go back, because nothing feels more powerful than being fully in your own corner. especially when it counts. Chapter 10. Choose yourself daily, even when no one claps. Choosing yourself is one of the most important decisions you will ever make, and the hardest part about it is that most days no one will even notice that you're doing it. There will be no applause when you get up early to take care of your mind. No one will cheer when you walk away from what doesn't serve you. There will be no recognition when you make tough decisions that protect your peace. But still, you choose yourself. You do it quietly. You do it consistently. You do it not because others see it, but because you finally do. It's tempting to wait for support before taking that first step. To wait until someone encourages you. To wait until someone tells you you're doing the right thing. But if you wait for approval before choosing yourself, you'll always be behind. You'll always hesitate. You'll always be unsure. And at some point, you have to stop asking the world for permission to be who you are. You give that to yourself. You stop waiting for someone to clap. You start showing up even when it's silent. Because that's what real growth looks like. It's not loud. It's not shiny. It doesn't come with an audience. It's in the decision to go to bed on time when no one's checking. It's in the moment you stay committed to your goal even when no one asks how it's going. It's in the small, unseen choices. What you eat, what you think, how you speak to yourself, how you spend your time, that reflect whether you are living for you or for others. You can't build a life of self-respect by only showing up when others are watching. You build it in the dark, in the quiet, when no one knows what you're doing, when no one is celebrating you. That's where discipline is born. That's where self-trust is built. That's where your identity is shaped, not by what you do once, but by what you keep doing, day after day, even when there's no reward in sight. Choosing yourself is not a one-time thing. It's not a decision you make once and forget. It's daily, it's uncomfortable, it's personal, and often it's lonely. Because not everyone will understand why you're changing. Not everyone will agree with your boundaries. Not everyone will like that you're no longer as available. But choosing yourself isn't about being liked. It's about being whole. There's a part of you that already knows what you need, that knows which habits are hurting you, that knows which relationships are draining, that knows when you're settling. The problem is never knowing, it's choosing. Choosing yourself means you act on that knowing, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when the crowd walks away. You won't always feel motivated. You won't always feel strong. Some mornings you'll wake up and want to quit. Some nights you'll feel invisible. You'll question if it's worth it. You'll wonder if anyone even cares. But those are the moments that matter the most. Because if you can still choose yourself in the silence, that means it's real. That means it's coming from the right place. And once you stop needing outside recognition, you start building the kind of life that doesn't fall apart when people leave. You become the kind of person who doesn't depend on others to feel worthy. You no longer need the crowd to clap. You clap for yourself. You celebrate your progress even when no one else sees it. You validate your effort, even when others stay silent. Choosing yourself also means you stop abandoning yourself to please others. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop agreeing just to avoid conflict. You stop ignoring your own limits just to be accepted. Because every time you do that, you lose a piece of yourself, and the more you lose, the harder it becomes to find your way back. You don't need to fight for attention. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to be the loudest or the most impressive. You just need to be consistent. You need to wake up and show up. You need to keep going when it's boring. You need to keep believing in your vision, even when it feels far away. You need to make the small decisions that your future self will thank you for. No one can do that for you. No one can make those choices on your behalf. You are the one who has to look in the mirror at the end of each day and ask yourself, did I show up for me today? Not for likes, not for applause, not for validation, just for you. There will be people who don't understand why you prioritize yourself. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're distant. They'll say you're selfish. But that's not your responsibility to fix. Their discomfort is not your burden. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to evolve, even if that means letting go of what once felt familiar. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you never care for others. It means you stop sacrificing your well-being just to keep others comfortable. It means you help from a full place, not from a place of depletion. It means you stay rooted in your truth, even when people try to sway you. And most of all, it means you take responsibility for your own life, not out of fear, but out of love. Love for your future. Love for your peace. Love for the person you're becoming. And here's what's beautiful about it: when you choose yourself consistently, the right people begin to show up. People who see your worth without needing to be convinced. People who respect your boundaries. People who match your effort. People who celebrate you even when you're not performing. But that only happens after you've already decided that you'll stand by yourself, even if no one else does. It's easy to clap when someone wins. It's easy to support someone when they're shining. But what about the days when you're still in the process? What about the mornings you wake up and feel behind? What about the moments when everything inside you feels heavy, but you still move forward? That's when choosing yourself matters most. Not in the moments when it's easy. In the moments when it's not. When it's quiet. When it's difficult. When no one notices. You don't need loud victories to be proud of yourself. You just need consistency. You just need to know that you didn't abandon yourself. That you kept your word. That you honored your journey. And that kind of quiet commitment, that's what changes lives. So every day, ask yourself, what would it look like to choose me today? Maybe it means resting. Maybe it means pushing. Maybe it means letting go. Maybe it means starting again. But whatever it is, do it with full intent. Do it without apology. Do it without needing approval. Because you're not here to be someone else's version of success. You're here to become your own version of fulfilled. And that begins and ends with you. Choosing yourself, showing up, staying true, and walking forward. Even when the room is quiet and the claps are missing. One day you'll look back at all the times you kept going without recognition. And you'll realize that's where the real power came from. That's where your strength was built. That's when your life began to shift. And you'll be grateful that you didn't wait for applause to start believing you were worth the effort.